Chris Matthews just busted in dirty scandal after months of calling for Trump's impeachment for same thing. More disgusting hypocrisy. The media has been like a dog with a bone ever since Trump was elected. And it is starting to take on very ironic twists that show the blatant and outrageous hypocrisy of our so-called unbiased mainstream media. One of the favorite manufactured narratives is to try and paint Trump as a sexual predator, because women who paid to come out of the blue with their outlandish claims is taken as the holy grail of reasons to impeach, right? Ironically, there have been more accusations backed up by evidence of sexual misconduct of some of the very so-called news reporters that are always after our president, and here is yet another one. The very one and only fake news purveyor Chris Matthews, who was one of the ones who has been out in full force continually pushing this sexual pervert narrative against our president, has just been slapped with his very own dirty sex and misogynistic scandal after numerous female employees and co-workers are coming forth about what Matthews did to them. Liberals are incredibly adept at two main things, being professional whiners and being extreme hypocrites. The belief is that comments Trump made about grabbing the *SSY in a locker room over a decade ago is somehow grounds for impeachment, but liberals can have sex with anyone they want, including child. Ren in some cases, and yet no one bats an eye. Now another such liberal is being revealed for what he really is, and Chris Matthews isn't enjoying his time in the limelight. This scandal could and should bring down his entire career. What makes it hilarious is that for months he has been throwing mud at President Trump for something not even remotely close. Digital Politics Today reported on December 16th, news hit that NBC had paid off a former assistant producer for Hardball with Chris Matthews, who alleged sexual harassment by Chris Matthews. But now more people have come forward to the Daily Caller alleging that Matthews ran an openly sexist news operation where he was regularly abusive to staff. Staffers described themselves as battered wives, according to 3 guests of the show and 2 former producers. 2 former NBC producers independently alleged Matthews would rate the looks of his female guests on a scale and said Matthews was so abusive that staff joked about being battered women. The interviews in total paint Matthews as a tyrant liable to fly off the handle at the slightest mistake, who was eager to objectify women and made inappropriate sexual comments appear to be a matter of course for someone in his position. Both former NBC producers requested anonymity out of concern for the future careers. One is actively seeking a job in media and the other still works closely with MSNBC. One expressed fears about being labeled a troublemaker and cited the string of former Fox News women who have all but disappeared from television. Sadly, I know other women who won't even be an anonymous source regarding Chris Matthews because they're that concerned about the door closing on career opportunities in media, the producer concluded. Allegedly, Matthews objectified women, referring to them as cutie and sweetie pie and making improper remarks. He would eye down a woman who walked on set to comment on the features of what they were wearing, one former producer said, explaining that it looked like Matthews was undressing the women with his eyes. He would objectify them and interrupt them in a way that he would never do to his male guests. He has a very outdated view of women. The other producer likened his behavior to that of a teenage boy, alleging that Matthews would rate his female guests on a numerical scale, deciding which guest was the hottest of the week, and would talk about how hot various women in the office were, including herself. Matthews has a history of making questionable and unprofessional remarks about women, including saying that Sarah Palin was electric but could be hotter and being caught on a hot mic admiring Mellon. Iowa Trump's runway walk, in addition to the troubling behavior toward women. All 5 of the sources who spoke to DHEDC about the workplace environment at Hardball described Matthews as verbally abusive. They claimed that Matthew's outbursts went beyond normal justifiable frustration, and former staffers apparently felt like they had to walk on eggshells around their abusive boss. The two former producers independently referred to incidents involved screaming at staffers, throwing objects around, and generally demeaning guests and the people who worked for him. I would describe it as verbal abuse, one former producer asserted, recalling their own experiences with Matthews. The screaming is beyond the screaming you've ever heard. You just feel so under attack. One former producer described him assailing a staffer as worthless and an idiot in such a horrible way that they had to stop production and that the producer would never forget. Seeing it would have made you shudder. You don't forget something like that. Another witness said they'd never seen anything like it before or since, and that all the guests were horrified. I just cannot convey strongly enough how eerie it felt, the witness continued. I've never been in a situation like that in a TV studio. Two sources with the show said he regularly belittled his staffers, one saying he acted like a drunk at a bar. What's disturbing is that MSNBC tried to sweep the entire incidents under the rug. When female staff members complained or remotely raised issues about the way they were being treated by Matthews, the HR department was more interested in protecting the talent of MSNBC. This story is really more proof that these bogus sexual allegations against Trump have been nothing but a witch hunt, and the real perverts are the liberals behind the news desks making up these ridicule. Lose fake news stories about our president. Liberals will never let the truth get in the way of a good story, and for over a year we have seen the unbelievable lengths they will go to in order to get our president impeached. Now, the very news organization that has been responsible for being behind all of these fake stories about President Trump could now possibly crumble with their own star anchor, Chris Matthews, being brought down in a sex scandal of his own.